I want to ask you about Allegro Brillante. It's so joyful, and
unless you're doing it.
Yeah, well,
No, that's not true. It's actually wonderful to do.
Because there's a whole lot packed in there. They just dance and dance and dance, and it seems the thing that is a pleasure for me is that they're performing the joy, whether they're feeling it or not. We're certainly feeling like, despite all that footwork and speed, that they have a kind of ease with it.
Mr. Balanchine was quoted as saying that he put everything he knew about classical ballet in those 13 minutes. And he was right. And then you also have to go back to who he did it now that we're talking about history. Maria Tallchief and Nicholas Magallanes, and these were two extraordinarily strong classical dancers in the late 50s. So I programmed it and I thought, oh, okay, let's just see what happens. And I was really just astounded at how fast, clear, brilliant these dancers initially already, even before I stepped in to rehearse them, were dancing, and it's also one of the reasons I brought it here. But it's a very fast ballet. It's everything that it's your ABCs, it's your 1, 2, 3s, it's your multiplication tables, it's everything you've learned in classical ballet that has made you strong. It's packed in those 13 minutes fast, but the music, it's the music for me that has a romanticism to it that you can see in the pas de deux with the principal couples, how she goes up to him and she embraces him. And all of that is really how Balanchine was able to turn these steps that we were, that we know are everyday steps that we were brought up learning, and kind of turn them into a very different language and an expression that only geniuses can do.
So speaking of history, it's such a great thing to see this 1988 work from Peter Martins. So originally danced by dancers from City Ballet, but also 2 dancers from Paul Taylor Company. And could you talk a little bit about your decision to coach that kind of versatility into these dancers, that you didn't bring in ringers from a modern dance company to balance the training that the Miami City Ballet dancers are doing, but you found in your own company?
One of the things that you do as an artistic director is that you look at your dancers and you say, well, what is out there that I can bring to highlight them? And there is Simone, there's also Emily Bromberg, who learns a principle, and then Reiner, who has that kind of very elegant, European look to him, and Natalia. I mean, I don't know anyone else that could do Natalia, and then Chase. So there, I looked at them and I said, you know what, I can do Barber because I have the dancers to do it. And so that was my decision not to bring in modern dancers, because Natalia and Chase were perfect for it. Peter Martins came down, I was really honored. I called them up and I said, we're doing one of your ballets, and there's nothing like having a living choreographer in front of you. There just isn't. You can have as many repetitors, as many teachers, but the minute you have the person who choreographed it in front of you, it changes.
So then we see Wheeldon, which is like the opening madness, and then some scenes of kind of deceptive simplicity. One of the striking things for me is, first, could you just talk about why the live music is important in this piece? So,
live music is part of the experience of a live performing art. We have an extraordinary pianist that you heard, Francisco Renaud, and there is no, Sony DVD, there's nothing that can really compare to his performing. So there is no question in respect to, do I choose a recording or do I choose live music? It'll always be live for me whenever possible.
Could you say something about the female soloist? Because I think that seems like a kind of Wheeldon signature, that he makes it look sort of simple and unadorned, and it's really so hard. And it's sort of exposing for the dancer to have, it's quiet, she's got to do these balances and then turns at different tempos. Could you talk a little bit about that challenge?
Chris is an extraordinary musical choreographer, and so he grew up really under the Balanchine house and the Robbins house, as well as in London. And so he is one of these choreographers that very similar to Justin and very similar to Alexei and Peter as well, where the music actually, they respond to the music. So they don't choreograph first and then put music on it, as some choreographers do. They actually listen to the music and become inspired. Emily has this beautiful kind of gamine quality to her of innocence and forlorn, and that is just works perfectly for that role.
She's asking about the training of the dancers and what Miami City Ballet does with education, because it's such an impressive part of what goes on.
We have a school, the Miami City Ballet School, so we're one of the few companies in the United States that have a feeder school. We have a responsibility, we feel a responsibility as is what I always say, we're the 800-pound gorilla in South Florida. There is no other dance company, no other ballet company really of our stature, and I don't mean that by gloating. So there's a responsibility that we have to bring the art form to communities of need or children, educate for them to understand that there's this glorious art form that they can actually come to. It's really important for dancers, for young dancers of today, to understand that they belong to a history and a community that only they belong to. And clearly the Pillow has that. They have to understand that there are dancers that came before them, that they belong to them and they belong to that history. And it's important, and there's only one way to teach it to them, and that's by bringing them here or actually talking to them about it. So it's wonderful to be among the archives and for them to see past dancers and to study and to understand, and to also to know that the things that they're going through are things that other dancers before them went through as well.
Right, on this very same stage.
On the very same stage.